Hi, and welcome back to Publishing Power. This is Joellen, and I am accompanied by Christina Stanley of Fictionary Today. Hi, Christina. How are you?
Hi, Joellen. I am doing great. Super excited about where we're at today because we've covered 37 of the 38 fictionary story elements. And now what we're going to do, yeah, I know. Made it through.
It's a long time.
Yeah. So today we're gonna start talking about the story arc and from a writer and an editor's perspective, how to use the story arc to maximize the powerfulness of your story.
Right. So tell us about the story arc, because I know that you have done a lot of research with many others in the world, and it's the hot topic. So take us in.
All right. So the story arc, and it's often referred to as the narrative arc, is basically the flow of your story from a high-level structural perspective. And what the story arc is showing you is how to form your story in a way that resonates with readers. And historically, over time, this has not changed. So I'm going to give you my big example of Beowulf, first Anglo-Saxon story written. It's an epic poem. However, it was in like 750 BC, somewhere in there, a long time ago. And when I analyzed it, it followed the story arc dead on. So it's inciting incident, it's plot point 1, the middle, plot point 2, and the climax. So that's the beginning of stories, starts there. And as we go through history, the big commercially successful books, the books that have stayed around forever, you think of all of the Jane Austen books, they all follow the story arc. And I just want to give a little shout out to K.M. Weiland. I'm sure lots of you are familiar with her, but she has an archive on her site, and she has analyzed a ton of books, hundreds of them, against the story arc, and they all follow the same pattern. So there's a lot of research out there on the value of being aware of the story arc and being aware of, is your story following the form? And I say form very carefully, not formula. It's your unique story. Is it following that form? And if not, you should know why not.
So we're looking at patterns here, and it's really important that people understand that you don't have to fit exactly, but you need to kind of follow the same rhythm. And the rhythm is very important to hear the music of your story. So there you go.
And that's it is exactly what you're saying. It's the music of your story. It's the artistry. And your story is written by you. You're a unique artist. If you look at Romeo and Juliet, that has been rewritten prior to Shakespeare wrote it, way back in the Greek myths. It was already written, except it was with a lion and a scarf instead of poison on the, of course, I can't think of the thing where she's lying and she dies. But that story has been written many, many times, and it's always unique, and readers love it. So I don't want writers to be afraid that if they follow a form, they won't be unique, because their voice is unique. It's you as a person, right?
Everybody has their own story and their own song to sing. So we're there. We just need to get the rhythm right, because if it doesn't flow right, it doesn't, people can't follow along. And there's something that we love in our heart and our minds that stays the same in music and artistry and in stories.
So what I want to do here, we'll take a pause, and I'm just going to give a little visual of what the story arc is, so everybody can clearly picture it in their heads.
The Fictionary story arc automatically draws for you. The yellow line is your story. The blue line is the recommended story arc. If you don't remember what a scene is, you can click here and read the scene. You can also see when characters enter or exit the scene. So Alyssa enters in scene 1 and she exits in scene 87.
Okay, so everybody's now seen the story arc, and I've talked to you about the story arc from a writer's perspective and evaluating the story from a writer's point of view. So Joella, maybe you could talk a little bit about what a professional editor does when they're performing a story edit.
Right. Well, when we get your story edit or your story, and we're going to go ahead and edit it, we're going to look at the story arc. And when we do that, we want to determine the key scenes. And that's really important to be able to develop those. So the editor will evaluate and separate each of those, and then they'll come back to you and show you these key scenes. And they're going to evaluate, are they in the right order to follow that pattern of the story arc? Because if they're not, sometimes it's as as easy as restructuring and, flipping things around and moving it and tweaking it a little bit to make it stronger. If not, there's maybe missing parts or maybe parts that can be omitted, whatever it may happen. But those are the basis and the foundation, the ground of the story arc. And so when they come back to you, they're going to bring them back to you and ask you if you agree with that. Do you feel like these are the key scenes? And if you don't agree, then we really need to look at what scenes you thought were important, because the story may be different than what you perceive, or maybe it's not conveying the way you want it to. So either way, we need to fix that. And then once you come to an agreement, how do you make it more powerful based upon those key scenes? Are they as powerful as they can be? And again, that's what we've been going through on these 38 story elements, is to look at every small piece in an objective manner so that nothing is overlooked. So we're going to look at that, and then we're going to compare it to the story arc. And from that point, when you're doing your revisions after the story edit, where your focus is, and you have an agreed upon vision, and then you're going to be able to enter into the next sessions a lot easier.
Yeah, and I just want to say too, when you're working with a story editor, it's really fun to see somebody else's insight into your book in a structured perspective, that they've worked really hard to figure out what is working and what isn't. And so there's lots of value there. And whether you choose to use an editor or not, of course, it's up to you as a writer, but you probably want to think about it before you publish your book or go to an agent or a publisher with your story.
Right. So now we know what a story arc is, and we've been going successfully through these 38 stories, but wait, folks, there's more. I know that you would like to break this down into 5 more sections of the story arc. So tell them what they get, Christina.
Right. Okay. So this was just the intro into the story arc. And so the next 5 videos are going to be a deep dive into the inciting incident. Plot point 1, the middle of the story where everybody struggles because it's really hard to write and it's the longest part of the book. Plot point 2, and then the climax scene, and how that all comes together. And we're going to give you famous examples of plot points so that you can actually see what other authors are doing with their key scenes in their story. So yeah, we're going to move on from there. We're going to make it a little more visual so you can actually see this stuff.
All right. So we always look at this, and we've looked at all of our scenes. We don't need to go back to all of our scenes today, but we do want to kind of evaluate. So do we have any kind of key little homework for our listeners today?
Yeah, so the homework is this one. I mean, we have lots of blogs, and you can just Google Fictionary Inciting Incident. You'll find them, or Fictionary Story Arc, or whatever, to understand what are the 5 key scenes. And the story arc, there can be more, but start with the basic 5. So you know what they are. Exactly. And then once you know what they are, we can work through and start evaluating, are you hitting those or not? And are they in the right place or not? So that would be my first step if I were working on this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I do want to mention, we do this as a story coach editor. When we come in, we put them into the system, but we're using professional tools, and those professional tools were created by Christina at Fictionary, and it is the Storyteller. And basically, folks, you can go in there for free now. And if your manuscript is ready, you can upload it, and it will show you your story arcs literally in seconds, which is just unbelievable in today's artificial intelligence world, but it is quite amazing. And I do recommend that you do that. Everything we're talking about has been automated so that we can, use our professional skills faster and easier and dig in more deeper than we've ever been able to do before, and still remain very objective. So again, I do encourage you to check that out. We'll be back with the 5 elements, or the 5 parts, I should say, of the story arc. And I look forward to that. Thank you, Christina. This is great.
Thanks, Joelle, and see you next week.